Kelvin strolled through the university campus with confidence, his designer sunglasses perched on his nose and his phone in hand as he texted multiple girls at once. He was the guy, the one every girl wanted to be with, and the one every guy secretly envied. His reputation as the ultimate ladies' man wasn't just talk, it was well earned. Kels, a voice called from behind. It was Tunde, his childhood friend and closest confidant. Man, I've been looking for you. Kelvin smirked, slipping his phone into his pocket. Tunde, my guy, what's up? Tunde frowned. Kels, we need to talk. Kelvin raised a brow. Talk about what? Tunde sighed, frustration evident in his tone. Your lifestyle, bro. This reckless way of living, it's not sustainable. Kelvin chuckled, patting his friend's shoulder. Relax, Tunde. Life is short. We are young. We are in university. This is the time to enjoy. You call this enjoyment? Tunde shook his head. Every night you are at a club, different girls in your bed, skipping classes. One day, this will all catch up with you. Kelvin scoffed. Come on, man, look at me. I'm thriving. I passed my exams, I've got money, and I'm having the time of my life. What's the problem? Tunde crossed his arms. Not every time in life is about fun, Kels. Have you ever thought about your future? What happens after school? Kelvin grinned. Easy. I will get a good job, settle down, and then maybe become a responsible husband and father. But for now, he clapped his hands. No worries, no stress, just vibes. Tunde sighed deeply. I hope you don't regret these words one day. Kelvin dismissed him with a laugh. You worry too much. Come on, let's go grab something to eat. My treat. As they walked towards the cafeteria, Kelvin's phone buzzed. He checked the message and smirked. It was from a girl he had met just 2 nights ago, inviting him over. Sorry, bro, he said, already turning to leave. Something just came up. Tunde watched him walk away and shook his head. One day, you will just wish you listened, Kels, one day. Kelvin sat in his hostel room, casually scrolling through his phone while humming to the latest Afrobeat song playing from his Bluetooth speaker. His room was a typical bachelor's. Pad, a messy bed, empty pizza boxes on the floor, and the faint scent of cologne mixed with last night's alcohol. A knock came at the door. Kelvin, open up, it's me. Kelvin sighed, recognizing Tunde's voice. He lazily got up, unlocked the door, and let his friend in. Tunde walked in, wrinkling his nose. Bro, your room smells like a brewery. When was the last time you cleaned up? Kelvin laughed, collapsing onto his bed. Clean for what? I hardly stay here. Tunde shook his head. Exactly my point. You are always out, drinking, partying, and chasing women. Kelvin, you need to slow down. Kelvin groaned. Not again, Tunde. You sound like my mother. Tunde folded his arms. Maybe because I care about you. Have you thought about the risks? Diseases, an unplanned pregnancy, your future? Kelvin rolled his eyes. Bro, I always use protection, and even if something happens, I will handle it, no big deal. Just then, another knock came at the door. This time, it was Emeka and Sammy, their 2 other close friends. Kels, what's up? Emeka greeted, walking in with a wild grin. Sammy, always the most serious among them, scanned the room and sighed. Let me guess, another lecture from Tunde. Tunde nodded. You guys need to help me talk sense into him. Emeka chuckled. Talk sense into Kelvin? That's a lot, cause my brother. Kelvin grinned. Exactly. You guys should just accept me for who I am. Sammy sat on the chair beside the bed. Kelvin, jokes aside, we have known each other since our first year. We have seen guys like you before. They live wild, thinking nothing can go wrong, but one mistake and everything falls apart. Kelvin waved them off. Guys, stop stressing. Nothing will happen. I'm in control. Tunde sighed in frustration. You are playing with fire and one day you will get burned. Kevin smirked, standing up and stretching. Well, until then, let me enjoy myself. His phone buzzed, a message from Cynthia, one of the girls he was currently seeing. Hey babe, let's go out tonight. I miss you. Kelvin chuckled, and speaking of enjoyment, myself, I have a date tonight. Emeka shook his head. You are impossible. Kelvin winked. That's why you love me. As the three friends left, Sammy turned to Tunde. We have done our best. He will have to learn the hard way. Tunde sighed. I just hope it's not too late by the time he realizes. The entire university was buzzing with excitement. After years of lectures, tests, and sleepless nights, the final exams were officially over. Students were celebrating in different ways, some in their hostels, some at restaurants, but Kelvin had only one place in mind: the Wildfire Club, the most popular nightclub in town. Dressed in a fitted black shirt, designer jeans, and expensive sneakers, Kelvin checked himself out in the mirror. Pleased with his reflection, his cologne was strong, his gold wristwatch gleamed under the dim hostel light, and his confidence was at an all-time high. His phone rang. It was Emeka. Kels, where you dey? Emeka's voice boomed over the phone. Kelvin smirked. My guy, I dey prepare. Tonight go mad. You no go wait for us? Kelvin laughed. Meet me at Wildfire. I dey go first. Tunde, who had been quietly sitting on the bed, sighed. Kelvin, this is our last night as university students. Must you spend it in a club? Kelvin rolled his eyes. Tunde, abeg, I no get time for sermon tonight. This is the grand finale. I need to celebrate in style. Tunde shook his head. Do whatever you want. Just be careful. Kelvin grinned, grabbing his car keys. I'm always careful. See you later, bro. He stepped out, jumped into his sleek Toyota Camry, and sped off into the night. The club was alive with loud music, flashing lights, and people dancing without a care in the world. Kelvin walked in like a king, immediately spotting Emeka and Sammy at a VIP table. Bottles of expensive liquor were already lined up. Kels, over here, Emeka waved. Kelvin made his way to them, shaking hands. Omo, this is the life. Sammy laughed. Na so, make we enjoy. Kevin poured himself a drink and took a long sip. His eyes scanned the crowd until they landed on a woman dancing in the center of the room. She was stunning. Long curly hair, a tight red dress that hugged her curves, and a smile that could make a man forget his own name. Kelvin licked his lips. Who be that babe? He asked Emeka. Emeka glanced over. I don't know. It's my first time to see her here. Kelvin smirked. Perfect. He finished his drink, adjusted his shirt, and made his way toward her. As he approached, she turned and met his eyes. Their gazes locked, and she smiled. Kelvin knew then that the night was just beginning. Hi, he said smoothly. I'm Kelvin. She chuckled, taking a sip of her cocktail. Diane. Nice to meet you, Diane. You dance pretty well. She smirked. You watch me for how long? Kelvin grinned. Long enough to know I'd like to dance with you. Diane laughed and took his hands. Let's see if you can keep up. They moved to the beat, bodies close, the alcohol in their systems making everything feel electric. They danced, they laughed, and they drank too much. By 2 a.m., Diane was completely drunk, her words slurred, her steps unsteady. Kelvin frowned. You came with someone? Diane shook her head lazily. Alone. He sighed. You can't go home like this. I'll be fine, she murmured, almost stumbling. Kelvin caught her just in time. No, you won't. Let me take you to my place. You can rest there. Diane looked at him, eyes half lidded. Okay. With his arm around her waist, Kelvin led her out of the club, unaware that this single night would change the rest of his life. Kelvin struggled to unlock the door to his apartment while supporting Diane, who leaned heavily against him. She giggled drunkenly, her perfume filling his nostrils as he finally managed to push the door open. "Welcome to my humble abode," Kelvin said, playfully flipping on the lights. Diane staggered in and immediately collapsed onto his couch. Nice place," she murmured, rubbing her temples. "I think I drank too much." Kelvin chuckled, grabbing a bottle of water from the fridge. "No kidding. Here, drink this." Diane sat up, took the bottle and gulped down half of it. "You're a gentleman," she teased, wiping her lips. Kelvin smirked, sitting beside her. "I try." There was a moment of silence. The club's loud music was gone, replaced by the soft hum of the ceiling fan. Kelvin studied Diane, her soft brown skin, full lips, and the way her dress hugged her figure. Diane caught him staring and raised a brow. "What?" Kelvin chuckled. "Nothing. Just, you're beautiful." Diane smirked. "And you're smooth." They held each other's gaze. The room suddenly felt warmer. Diane licked her lips and Kelvin felt his heart beat quicken. "We should rest," Kelvin said, though his voice lacked conviction. Diane leaned in slightly, her breath warm against his skin. "Do you want a rest?" Kelvin swallowed. "Not really," she smiled, then stopped pretending. Before he could say anything, her lips were on his. The kiss was deep, slow, intoxicating. Whatever self-control they had vanished as passion took over. Clothes hit the floor, hands exploded, and the night spiraled into a blur of pleasure. Kelvin woke up to the sunlight streaming through the curtains. He blinked, momentarily disoriented, until he felt the warm body beside him. He turned his head and saw Diane, still asleep, her head tousled against the pillow. For a moment, he simply watched her, memories of the night flooding his mind. He smirked. It had been a good night. Diane stared, stretching with a soft moan before opening her eyes. She saw Kelvin watching her and chuckled. "Good morning, stalker." Kelvin grinned. "Morning, stranger." She sat up, holding the sheet against her chest. "Last night was wild." "Yeah," Kelvin agreed, running a hand through his hair. "I hope you don't regret it." Diane gave him a playful look. "Not at all," but she sighed, reaching for her dress. "I should go." Kelvin raised a brow. "So soon?" Diane chuckled. "It was just a one-night thing, right?" Kelvin hesitated for a second before nodding. "Right." Diane smiled, slipping into her dress. "Well, thanks for the fun." Kelvin leaned against the pillow. "Anytime." And just like that, Diane walked out of his apartment, out of his life, or so he thought. Kelvin stood by his window, watching as Diane stepped into a cab and disappeared into the traffic. He stretched lazily and smirked to himself. One night, one memory, no strings attached. That was how he had always lived his life, and this time was no different. He grabbed his phone, scrolled through unread messages from other women, and whistled as he headed for the bathroom. Life moved on. Months later, Kelvin was in his office at work, typing an email when his phone vibrated on the desk. He glanced at the caller ID, unknown number. He almost ignored it but decided to pick up. "Hello?" A hesitant female voice came through. "Kelvin, it's Diane." Kelvin frowned. "Diane?" He searched his memory before it clicked. The girl from the club that night. "Wow, long time," he said casually. "How have you been?" There was a pause. Then Diane sighed. Kelvin, we need to talk. Kelvin leaned back in his chair, uninterested. Talk about what? Another pause. Then softly she said, I'm pregnant. Kelvin sat up instantly, his heart slamming against his chest. What? I'm pregnant, Diane repeated. And it's yours. Kelvin burst into laughter, shaking his head. Diane, you must be joking. We only had a one-night stand. I know, she said, her voice calm, but that night was enough. Kelvin exhaled, rubbing his temples. Are you sure it's mine? Diane's voice turned cold. You were the only one I was with during that period. Kelvin felt his throat go dry. So what do you want from me? I thought you should know, Diane said. I won't force you into anything, but this is happening. Kelvin. Kelvin clenched his jaw. You can't keep it. Diane gasped. Excuse me? You heard me, Kelvin snapped. Diane, I'm not ready to be a father. Just get rid of it. Diane's voice was shaking now. Kelvin, this is a child, not a mistake you can erase. I don't care, Kelvin shouted. I barely know you. I'm not about to change my life for some random pregnancy. Silence. Then Diane spoke, her voice low but firm. I was hoping you'd be different, but I see I was wrong. Kelvin rolled his eyes. Do whatever you want, just leave me out of it. Diane's voice cracked. You regret this one day, Kelvin. Before he could respond, she ended the call. Kelvin sighed and dropped his phone on the desk. Pregnant? No way. This is not my problem. He blocked her number. Life moved on. Or so he thought.